This conference will now be recorded.
No, we'll wait for you to open them because I know how noisy they are. Okay. Don't make a lot of noise eating them. Do you want me to project?
Yes.
Am I?
Oh, to go over the crackling.
Yeah, sometimes I speak loud.
Mike, could I have you just sit?
Like chips are.
Sit up here.
No, you can stand and just.
Okay.
That makes them that much more delicious when
They are
you
good.
You ready?
We are ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Good evening to those who are online and visiting us. As you probably know, the city's having, I think, a total of 11 meetings to solicit input, public input for their comprehensive plan update. Ordinarily, these meetings have a single topic or are focused on a single committee's agenda, but tonight we actually have three groups, three agendas that we are going to work together to try to see. I mean, we have a lot of things in common every way, right? Anyway, so we have public art. The chair, Penny Tompkins, is sitting over there, wave hello. We have a common area for dogs, Betty Melizian. Where's Betty? Betty, how you doing? And I'm Mike Simino, Recreation and Parks. So we know when we're participating in public, respect everybody, be a good listener, maybe raise your hand and try to get somebody's attention if you have a comment to make, and that goes for everybody out there. And the city will start off the meeting with a short presentation, put us through a quick exercise, and then we'll open things up for conversation. Okay, awesome. We cover it?
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
All right. My name is Paul Connor. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director. Thanks everybody for coming. A couple of quick housekeeping things for those who are here in person. Emergency exits, the stairwell or the elevator by which you came, or directly, if you go straight out of this room and to the left, there's a second egress set of stairs that way. If you're unable to use the stairs and the elevator is down both sets of stairs, there is a area of refuge and a call button, so please make use of that if necessary. Restrooms are also straight out and to the left. If you're at home, find your own restroom. When we get to the discussion part, I would love to invite anybody who is at home and is comfortable to turn on your cameras at that time, so that it really feels like a community conversation, so that everybody sort of feels like they're in the same room, but of course that is your choice. So I'm going to start, as Mike said, with a very short presentation about some of the things we know going into this. I promise it won't be very long. Assuming that the technology lets me do it. One moment. Just give me 1 second for those who are at home. We're just getting it all set up. And where's the button that says present? Okay. As Mike said, this is we're developing the 2024 City Comprehensive Plan. And on Presto, there we go. What is the plan? The plan is the city's overarching policy document. It is our broad guidebook for what are we focused on over the next decade of work with an eye even further into the future. So, you know, if we look back in time, the whole idea of a city center started with the comprehensive plan. The whole idea of conserving some of our key resources in various parts of the city started in the comprehensive plan. The idea of beginning to transform and bring housing to places like Shelburne Road and Williston Road started in the comprehensive plan. So these are where the big pictures come in. Of course, also the rec path system. Sets a shared vision, gives guidance to our city council. City regulations must be consistent with it. So it's the It guides the adoption of regulations and capital plans. Obviously use it for all sorts of grant funding. And there's a whole series of standards under state statute that we are going to be updating, mindful of. Plans under Vermont law must be updated every 8 years. Also, we're changing community, and so this is the right time to do it, even if it wasn't the state law. Process, we're in the heart of the public meetings, as Mike said, 11 community conversations. This is community conversation number 5. There have been already work by all the different committees that have been providing feedback about what they'd be looking for, starting to think about objectives and goals. The Planning Commission and City Council, which we'll talk about in a minute, have sort of talked about big framework of it. Over the next few months, we're going to be developing the plan, getting feedback, sharing the whole plan, and having the objective of adopting the updated plan before budget season 2023-24. A few little things that we've been identifying as knowns throughout this plan. So key one, population growth has been relatively steady in our community. The last 10 years, it was 1.28%. Our plan said somewhere between 1 and 1.5%. Housing growth is a little bit bigger than that. And again, we're pretty much spot on with where we anticipated we would be. That chart at the bottom is showing the cycles of housing growth. The last couple of years have been pretty substantial new housing, the overwhelming majority of which has been in our city center area and along Kennedy Drive. One thing that I think is really important, especially for tonight's conversation about recreation and culture, as of this year, so as of when the homes that are under construction now are built, the majority of all housing in South Burlington will be multifamily housing. So 15 years ago, about 2/3 of all the homes in South Burlington were single family. Now it's less than 50%. So as we think about what does that mean for the community, what does it mean to have recreational opportunities, in the very near future, the majority of our entire population will live in multifamily housing. So let's, how do we both respond to that and deliver on behalf of all of those members of our community? Our community, we're anticipating through the research that we've done with the school district by 2030 to be a little over 22,500 people. We are projecting for the next couple of years to see above average housing growth. You've seen what's happening all around the City Hall building. Just last week, we issued the approval for 3 new buildings immediately east of the City Hall Library building, which will include 4-story buildings with residential in the top 3 stories and commercial on the ground floor, right as anticipated in our city center form-based code. That's a partnership between the private sector and University of Vermont. So that's really exciting. We know that our community is also changing in terms of broadening who we are. Over 10% of our residents speak language other than English at home. 24% of households include someone with a disability. So as again, we think about what does it mean to provide recreation, culture, all that, we're trying to think about all the members of our community. Median age is expected to decline slightly over the next decade. I think that's a reflection of multifamily housing, of folks who are interested in living here in their 20s. The big picture is that we are one of the oldest states in the country. So while it is declining slightly, we're close to an average age of 40 in our community. Some land use knowns. Over the last decade, there's been a lot of effort to realign where new development takes place. So the 2 focuses, the 2 charts on the bottom are showing that in the last 10, 11 years, the majority of our housing, almost 70%, has been in areas identified for medium density or higher density. And since 2010, over 85% of new housing that's been approved has been either within or immediately next to our transit overlay districts. So as we're thinking about compact development in areas served by transit and water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, that's where a lot of it's going. Part of the discussion this evening and going forward is that these are not always the same places that recreational amenities exist historically. So that's one of our challenges moving forward. A couple of things on the transportation side. Almost 10% of households do not have a vehicle. Our daytime population is much higher than our evening, or somewhat higher than our evening population. And the one that I find really fascinating here is that of our 20,000 residents, only 2,600 people both live and work in South Burlington. And that little dot density map on the far right shows that where people generally work who live in South Burlington. About 80% of folks who live in South Burlington work within 10 miles, so it's very, very close. The message that my takeaway from that is that folks use South Burlington, Essex, Winooski, Burlington, and a couple of other communities functionally as one environment for them in terms of their day-to-day. That shouldn't be a huge surprise to any of us, but as we think about how do we plan for our community, this is how people use our area. Last couple of things. We know that this plan is an update to the 2016 plan. That was a major rewrite. The initial review of that 2016 plan said it's generally on the right track, but maybe we need to double down on some topics, including the council adopted a climate action plan, our first ever last year. The plan's ambitious targets will be incorporated into this plan. And there's been a number of studies in all sorts of areas that have been undertaken in since the 2016 plan. Those will be used as we develop this plan. We also know that there are many to go, and one of our objectives in this plan is to help identify what are the major plans that need to be done over the next few years. Recreation and culture, parks and open space, a lot of sidewalks and shared use paths. Those who are not familiar, we have two voter-approved funding sources related to recreation and open space. One is our Penny for Paths program, and one is our Penny for Open Space / Conservation Fund. There's a public arts set aside, meaning all capital projects undertaken by the city and city center have a portion dedicated to public art. And as you know, we have some recent additions to our facilities. There's a small park on O'Brien Farm Road, or off O'Brien Farm Road, which is part of the Hillside neighborhood. The building that those of us who are in person have the pleasure of being in this evening, Community Dog Park that just opened this year, or last year, I guess. And we know a couple are on their way. And that's really my quick overview. The four major themes of the proposed for the 2024 comprehensive plan, and there's a lot more detail under all these, are to be for the community to be inclusive, fair, just, human-focused, climate-resilient, and opportunity-oriented. I'm going to pass this over in a moment to Joe Sigali, who's going to lead us through. He's our facilitator for all of these sessions, and he's going to lead us through a conversation loosely themed around these four topics. I think that's all I've got. Mike already went over the guidelines. And Mike, Joe, do you want to tell people about the first homework assignment?
Yes.
And then I'll switch over to the apps.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Joe Sigali. Again, that's my name. And quick little bit information about me. I recently retired from the Agency of Transportation. I was the Director of Policy Planning and Research. I've been in planning for 30 years or so and have done some other things. And these guys asked me to kind of come on board and help out, which I was happy to do, especially this time of year. So what we're going to do is we have an online polling instrument here. We have about 4 or 5 questions to kind of get people warmed up, and will lead us into the main topic tonight, which is focusing on the 4 goals. And we'll have an open discussion around those 4 goals. and, and thinking about what's the relationship to recreation and culture and dog amenities and so on. So that's really what we're doing tonight. So what you need to do is, if you have a phone, if you don't have a phone, that's fine. This isn't, a scientific survey or anything, but go to your phone, go to the browser on the phone and type in Menti, MENTI.com. And if you're at home, you can do this on your computer as well. And then, sorry we didn't put the code up there, but I'll give everybody a minute or a couple seconds to get there. So again, menti.com, MENTI.com.
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Oops. Hold on. Okay, now let me escape from this. Switch over to this.
Okay, when you get there, you're going to want to enter the code 44662606.
It'll be up on the screen in just a moment.
Yeah, and we got to run this. I think it's here.
Very exciting.
So let me tell you the code again, because I know it's 44662606. Is everybody making progress getting on board?
Can you make this full size so people can read it?
Sorry. Well, they can read it on their screens.
And present top right, I think.
Here we go. That logo shouldn't look blurry on the bottom. So the first thing, Amanda, I could probably use your help with it. Amanda is a colleague of mine from the
Okay.
agency, yeah. So it might have asked you, are you guys seeing this question? And before this question, it might have asked you your name. And if it did, you can just ignore that, or you can put your name in if you want, but don't feel you have to.
If we've already answered the online survey, should we be doing this as
Yeah,
well?
this is just a conversation starter for tonight.
Okay, got
This is
it.
just get people warmed up.
Okey-dokey.
Yeah, so you're already answering the questions, which is great, which is what activities do you do in South Burlington?
Just let people know the code.
Pardon me?
Remind people the code is up there.
Yeah, the code is up there. It's 44662606. You're not already in. It's kind of hard to see it. So, this is pretty typical of the folks that have been coming to these meetings. You guys do a wide range of activities in South Burlington. You live here, obviously. I think mostly we have residents here. This group actually, it's pretty even across shopping. And of course, you would expect recreation and socializing to be pretty high. And there's 4 other. Anybody want to just say what the others are that they do in South Burlington? Anybody want to offer that up?
Well, mine was just go to the library because it doesn't really mention library, so.
Okay, no, good. Anybody else? Yes,
Exercise.
that's a good one. I'll add that for the other one. Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, your numbers are going to be skewed because there's people who actually have been here all their lives.
Yeah.
And because of where they may live, where they grocery shop, or that may not technically be in South Burlington. Like, I'm not going to deliberately come over to this side of town to grocery shop when I live down on the other side of town.
Right. Yeah, so everybody doesn't necessarily shop in South Burlington. It's kind of Paul's point earlier, which in a lot of ways you're living in a regional community as well. I think we all do in Vermont. We all go from town to town for different things. It's okay. We're just trying to get people warmed up. Okay. So this is what one word best describes your mood at this moment. And you can actually put it in 3 different words. This is for us, but I have to say my first impression of this group tonight was it was a pretty happy group. In fact, probably the happiest group we've had so far. Maybe it's the nature of the topic or the people or the snacks that Paul brought in. Oh, come on.
We exercise, have pets, and play an instrument, something like that.
So I'm not sure if folks online can see this too, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sharing the screen.
Yep.
Good. Curious has come up at all of them, which I think is great. Like, what's this all about? Optimistic, that's great too.
We're possibly also contrarian.
A little sick. Okay. Hopefully you're at home.
That's right. I know somebody who's out.
This is great. Okay. Everybody's all set. We'll just keep moving. So I just want to remind you of the vision and goals again, because this is really the focus of tonight's meeting. So being inclusive, fair, and just. So that's about creating opportunities for all residents and visitors. Human focused, investing in a high quality human scale built environment. Climate resilient, emphasize sustainability for long-term viability of a clean and green city. And then opportunity oriented, which is being supportive and engaged member of the larger regional and statewide community. Next one. So kind of thinking about those, what does tonight's theme, recreation and culture, mean to you in the context of South Burlington? How important is it? And in this case, you can just enter a word. This is just kind of, it's not going to be a word cloud. It'll just be kind of pop up there on the screen. So what does recreation and culture mean to you? Quality of life, excellent. There are no wrong or right answers. Community engagement, community, cool. Wide open spaces, essential. It's a great place to live. I'm invested in making it the best I can. That's great. Being community, foundational, same as it kind of essential and foundational go together. I'm seeing community up there a lot. Health for sure. Community assets, access to community assets. This is all great. And, one of the things that's jumping out, of course, is community. I think that's what, a common thread is among the three committees that are here tonight. And I would even venture to say, like, beyond community is like creating a sense of place, maybe a sense of identity. And just one quick comment, we had someone the other night from the Northwest neighborhood we were meeting with that South Burlington could use some, maybe lacks a little bit of who we are as a community and identity. And I think that your groups really can provide that over time. So, okay, we're gonna move on, and I think this is the last one. So now what we're asking you to do is, when thinking about recreation and culture, which goals do you think are most relevant? And another way, really what I'm asking you right now is, which ones do you want to start working on first tonight? Because we should probably start with the most important one. And this has worked out pretty well in all the different meetings, and they've been different for the different committees so far. And the app will just kind of walk you through how to do that. Is anybody surprised by kind of what they're seeing as the ranking coming up?
Not in this room.
Anybody online? Can you guys see, if you guys can see this okay? Does it look about right? So I want to get this down. Okay. So we're gonna thanks everybody for doing this. I know sometimes this technology can be a little glitchy, but I appreciate your input, and gives everybody kind of a chance to weigh in if you don't necessarily feel like speaking up. So we're going to start with inclusive, fair, and just, which is creating opportunities for all residents and visitors. And the question I'm asking is, what's working well now, and what can you sort of leverage to maybe make what you all do more inclusive and fair, make it more equitable, I guess is the word that I would use to kind of bring all those things together. Anybody want to just kind of take a stab at what you think is going great in South Burlington in that regards, relative to parks, recreation, public arts?
And the only thing I would add is, please don't feel bounded by the names of the committees. This is really the subject area of recreation and culture. So if there's something, when you get to the things that can be improved upon, it's not bounded by the specific committees that we have, it's the broad subject.
Yes. Oh, and one last thing. Please introduce yourself the first time you speak, just because everybody may not know everybody else.
My name is Robin Bergeson, and I absolutely love what's happening with the library and the winter festival we had this year with the outdoor music and the vendors and the photo bus and the market inside. I really like what's happening on Market Street.
When you said the library, are all those things associated with the library, or is there something more about the
No, I
library?
just love our library.
Okay.
I mean, the resources in our library are amazing.
Where was the library before? Was it in the city?
High
Oh,
school.
it was in the high school. Yeah, so
It was
now,
in the mall, and then
in the
the
mall.
university mall.
right, yeah. So now it's like a real public
Yeah,
library.
you can rent, a blood pressure cuff, a metal detector, read. I mean, it's amazing. I was telling my doctor the other day all this stuff. He's like, tell all your patients in South Burlington, there's a blood pressure cuff.
And when you think about like being equitable, it's just, all those things you just listed, you think that they so far are doing a great job in that regard? It's available to everybody and,
I think the biggest thing is when I'm selling these things to people and they often don't know about it. I would say that would be the biggest thing.
okay, well, that's good. Other thoughts about equity and recreation and culture in South Burlington? What's going well? Okay, where's there room for improvement? Yes, a name, please.
Lisa Yankowski. I grew up here. I've been here all my life.
Great.
So I look at everything from a whole different perspective than a lot of people in South Burlington. I think the rec department does a fantastic job with the programs they have for kids.
That's great. And do you think it's equitable, access is available to everyone, and are there any barriers to participation in the different programs that you're aware
I
of?
can't say that I can honestly answer that.
Okay, no, that's fair. Yeah, it's a tough question.
I'm a lot in my own little corner because I help oversee Red Rocks Park. So that has its own challenges for anyone who has physical issues trying to get around.
Right, for sure. Thanks. What about anybody online? Would you like to add anything? Yes, I think Muriel, did you raise your hand?
I just wanted to add that I really would like to make sure that all of our public spaces in the city are truly inclusive. I have found that since I have become of limited mobility, that what I find in the city is that they really do the minimum amount necessary in terms of inclusivity. I would like to suggest, why not flip the coin and become very proactive about inclusivity? I would like to cite the dog park at Wheeler as an example.
Okay.
And that is very simply that I have found it very difficult to navigate in the new dog park, and I am a member of the Common Areas for Dogs Committee, but I have found it very difficult to navigate in there. I think more is required. I think more paths, more other things would just simply help everyone in the community be able to have greater access to and enjoy the resources that we have here. And this community has a lot of assets. So I'll let somebody take over now.
I just want to ask a follow-up question though, because when you say, I think you said navigate in the dog park, and then, which means I take that to mean finding your way around inside the park. I haven't been there. Is it large and it's hard to find your way around in it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it sounds like you sort of expanded beyond the dog park and just being able to find your way around the city to the different amenities that are available. Is that correct? Hear that incorrectly?
Yes, I mean, in terms of parks and recreation, especially in the parks, I do think our buildings are probably, I think there's probably been more concern placed on the buildings to make sure that they are user-friendly to and inclusive of all groups. But I do think in our open spaces, we have a ways to go.
Okay, thank you. Yes, John?
I want to second what Muriel just said, but I want to make sure you understood, because you weren't at the dog park. The dog park wasn't accessible according to ADA accommodations when it opened. And
Okay,
that law was put in effect 1990. And so I think what Muriel's talking about is in all of our parks, we should be a leader on accessibility. It's not just finding our ways around, it's getting into them. So
Okay.
the pathways have to be redesigned, and the lighting, all of it has, but to have a new park open that was not accessible was like shocking that and we need to do better. So I think I agree with Muriel that I think all of our parks, we have to look at them and make sure they are welcoming to all of us with limited mobility.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. Other thoughts in the room or online? Again, we're focusing on, equity. Are things going well with equity in the city? Anything that you could build off that's going on now? Yeah. And just to be clear, I know there's committee members here and some members of the public, but just everybody speak up. Let's not, go ahead.
Penny Tompkins. I just was going to say, I think having the public art gallery has been a huge plus in the community, and that feels like it's pretty accessible to all. I mean, anyone who walks into the building sees what artwork is up on the wall, so I think that's a plus. That's been a real,
Thank you. Yes.
My name's Nora Senecal, and I live here in South Burlington. So I think what's going well is, I think it's a lot of the recreational program, or the big events, right? As somebody mentioned, as you mentioned, the winter event, and I think it's like Thursdays in the summer. There's the food trucks, and I think those are great for building community. What I've noticed, am I allowed to say like something that I think we can work on a little bit?
Say whatever you would like, yes.
So what I notice, and when I'm thinking about the city plan and the discussion of wanting to put more housing around Shelburne Road, is that there isn't a lot, most of the focus of development of recreating has been more in this area, in the central and the southeast quadrant.
Okay.
And we have a wonderful park attached to my neighborhood. I love it. It's well kept, and there's lots of nice aspects to it. But if you were going to put more, if you have a plan to put more housing on that area and have it accessible, there's going to be, in my view, a very large disparity about, somebody that's not easily accessible for somebody that lives in that area.
Right.
And if they didn't drive a car to come way down here. So I just think that's a very obvious equity concern.
Thanks. That's a great example. Yes.
Betty Malizia, I'm from the Dog Park Committee, Dog Park Common Areas for Dogs Committee. And this isn't about dogs, but I think Paul has heard me talk about this, is when we talk about equity, where, the city's really emphasizing more concentrated living, where people are living in apartments in large buildings. And the equity is, where is their green space? Where is their access to trees and grass and things like that? We're getting a lot of these buildings, and I'm trying to figure out, when we talk equity, it's similar to what this lady's saying. We're going to put more housing, more apartments in these different spaces. But I think the green space that goes with them, adequate green space, when you put in 30 or 40, we're going to put in several hundred apartments in the next couple of years.
Right.
And where do those folks have access to nature? You know, within walking distance. We want people walking, we don't want them driving cars, but they're not gonna have, you know, access to green space and nature within their, you know, vicinity. So where do they go? So that to me is equity around
Yeah.
those things. The community is very gung ho on sustainability, conservation, all of these things that have to do with climate action and everything. But there's this, you know, it's a priority to build more affordable housing and yeah, I'd say young professionals would just as soon be in an apartment and be able to walk to a cafe or something.
Sure.
But the whole idea of, we're talking about large housing development, and I think green space is an afterthought as far as meaningful and, you know, equitable.
Right.
access to
That's
that.
those are obviously two connected and excellent examples. You know, because there's really great reasons to have more density, but you know, you don't want to leave anybody behind as well by doing that. And is there anything else along those lines? You know, like things are going well. Yes.
Traffic,
Pardon me.
traffic.
Traffic. Yes.
I mean, the more apartment buildings, the more people that come here, the worse traffic is getting to be.
And do you think that is disproportionate on some people?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's going to get worse. Well, it's already gotten worse because I've always said Burlington dumps on South Burlington and we let them get away with it.
Anything else along? Oops, sorry. John, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to give kudos to our Park and Recs for our summer music series. It is so much fun to go to Veterans Park, and it's so great that it's in South Burlington. It's just it's like a real community celebration of the families and all of us sitting there having a good time, and it's free. And the food trucks are there. It really helps build a sense of place. And I would hope that as we develop a plan and we integrate a cultural plan, which doesn't exist right now in our city, into this, we can look in neighborhoods as well, so that we are making sure that that kind of great community building and that open space can happen in all of our smaller communities. We're talking about inclusion and equity, and as well as our library. Our bookmobile used to go to different communities throughout South Burlington, and it was really fun. I would go to Dorset Commons when the bookmobile was there, or other places, and a lot of families came out, and the kids were coming out onto the bus and looking at books, and now our bus is broken. And so I think we have a beautiful library, but we also have to make sure that the library outreach happens in every community, and that it's just not people coming into our new building. So I especially around equity, that I think we have a lot of work to do.
Is that, just curious, is that a temporary problem with the bookmobile, or is that
I hope it's temporary.
yeah, just
We put forth a proposal, the library trustees, to get a van that will be actually shared with rec of it, but primarily yes. So we hope to have one, but it's not in the plan yet.
It's not as temporary as it's in the shop.
Correct.
It's a capital investment that
Yeah.
needs to be
okay.
done.
Okay.
Yeah, we have none
Substantial.
now.
Okay.
Now there's none.
Okay. Just curious.
It died.
And, what about in the public art realm and equity? Any, that the downstairs, what did you call it? The space downstairs? Did you call it a gallery? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's accessible, but what else is going on in public art and accessibility and equity? Is it something that the committee thinks about?
Well, I think we're thinking of it more broadly, if I may just start this, that it's not just public art, but it's art and cultural assets in our community. Like when COVID hit, we had no idea how many arts organizations were impacted, or independent artists who live in South Burlington were impacted. So it's not just putting up public art in our spaces, which our committee does, but our committee is actually asking for a broader concept of culture being integrated into the city's planning and not just thinking of putting art on public buildings.
So, I'm sorry, did someone else have their hand up that I missed back here?
I did not, but I can.
Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
Yes, Amanda, I'm the Public Art Committee, Amanda Holland. I was just gonna say, one of the things that we have been having discussions on and is trying to address some of the equity. And right now, a lot of the committees, our work's been tied to city center, but we are working to get capital money to put art outside, recognizing that we want to be more equitable and put art throughout different places of the city, but that is a work in progress.
Okay, so it's on your radar screen. Did you have something?
Well, I was thinking the same thought as you just expressed, where there's a set aside for the art in city center. And I think it would be great, for maybe an equal commitment to be made, whether it's in our other parks or in other places, because they tie the community together. Tim Barrett's daughter, who's done the painting on all of the mailboxes. No, not mailboxes, but the utility boxes. Sometimes you'll be in a place that's you almost forget you're in South Burlington, but what can remind you is that you'll see one of these utility boxes that has something very interesting on it. It's a part of your community, you're in your community, and it's like somebody's kind of reached out to you, and yeah, you're here, and it's good energy that's always coming out of those things. And
Can I quote that to GMP?
Yeah, we need good energy. We need good energy. So I just wanted to piggyback on what you had said. And the library, art, our dog park, most of our rec programs, I'd like to see all of them. But what's the price of admission? They're free. They're
Most
free.
community events are free.
Okay.
We just finished our only pay for event.
So there is an
Next year.
accessibility that you associate with the word free. Now, some folks are fortunate and they can provide their own recreation. They can take their vacations. There's a lot of ways that we can indulge ourselves. But one way to provide equity to everybody in the community is for these amenities to be made available, not just in city center, maybe not just in the SEQ, but in every neighborhood that you can think of. And I don't want to piggyback on fees, more fees for development, but there are a variety of fees, and there are open space requirements when there are developments proposed. And maybe there's a way that there can, you can substitute some art maybe for open space if it's not really there present, or make a few things interchangeable with an amenity that you end up, or have it contribute to your open space requirement that you might invest some money in some art.
Can I ask one more question on this subject?
Yeah, of course.
I'm curious, for those who are on any of the committees or participate in the programs of the three committees that are here tonight, to what extent do you think that the user groups who are using the programming and facilities reflect the cross-section of our community in terms of age groups, lifestyles, backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera? To what extent do our users represent our community, in your experience?
I see everybody in the library. I see everybody in the library, that's for sure. That's a start. Okay, somebody else pick up.
Illuminate Vermont seemed to have a nice cross section.
Could you say that again, please?
Illuminate Vermont seemed to, that winter
Okay.
event, seemed to me have a nice cross section of people. But one person mentioned.
Can you introduce
this-
yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
It's okay.
Cindy Freeman. One person mentioned that she had to kind of tell people about the library. So I think part of the issue might be not getting our message across well enough. And the library, I have been in the library as well, and there is a nice, diversity in the library, which I thought, is wonderful. So I'm wondering why maybe the message isn't getting across somehow, and if that's also possible. And I think that, like, when I go to a business and so on, I see some beautiful art up on their walls, and I think that might be good too, is to also get, other community members involved, a salon, a hair salon, have them show the work, or, it just kind of opens it. I know that the utility boxes, that was a crowdfunding. So I think that to get the message out, it also needs to be beyond the borders here, and it needs to be hitting people within the community, that they also, they feel connected to the mission.
Right. Yes, Amanda.
So to give one perspective to Paul's question, I myself, having been a planner for over 12 years and typically go to these meetings where a lot of the volunteers are of a certain demographic. I myself have been on 2 committees since just having a child to now having a 6-year-old. And I'll say it's hard to be on be engaged actively when you are in certain aspects of life. But I really enjoy it, and I think it's great to have different aspects. So, but one of the things I would say is that it's very hard to diversify and get maybe people involved with these committees. But of course, now as I'm entering my kid going into school years, I'm like, well, how are there ways I could maybe get the PTO involved in the bike and ped committee, or like where? So I guess it's just putting it out there. There's different ways of, I think, doing outreach, but are there other things we could be ways to tap into existing groups without necessarily having them a part of these committees and just having stronger relationships there? Or even, I thought at one point there was some discussion of, similar to Burlington, how there's wards or something, whether there were some groups like that, because I know in my.
Did you say wards?
Wards.
Or NPAs, neighborhood.
Yeah, the NPAs.
But I know in my neighborhood, when Tim Barrett used to live there before he moved, there was, I'm over in Eastwoods, there was some funding that was given to the neighborhood as part of a development. And anyways, that funding, what it ended up doing was creating an annual celebration in the summer. We have a barbecue, of course, that funding, and it also made some improvements. There were other things that went on, but it instigated this like community gathering. And I feel like that's where a lot of other, I don't know, just having that local sense. The other Front Porch Forum is great, but annually, like, we get the whole diversity of, young families to retirees to everyone there. And it's just, I think it's other ways of bringing people together to get input.
Okay, thanks. Yes, and then I'm going to move on to the next.
You also had something.
Oh, sorry.
I just
Okay,
wanted
well, yeah,
Just
go
go
ahead.
briefly, just go on.
Sorry, go ahead. I don't think you've spoken.
Maybe it's the same thing, I don't know. Yeah, my name's Ann Lalone. I'm also on the charter committee, and we're having a discussion now about whether or not to have additional city councilors, whether they should be voted in by ward.
Right.
Same thing with the school board. So it's happening. We're going to have public engagement, hopefully.
Thanks.
If you had a ward system, that would be built in, as opposed to most people being on city council being from a certain section of the
of the city.
Yeah, and you feel like if you sort of took that structure and spread it out across the different committees, you could get better geographic diversity on your committees. So let's move on to the next goal. We spent a lot of time on this, the first one, which is great. But the second one on the list was human focused, investing in a high quality human scale built environment. Again, it's the same question. It's like, what's going well? What can you build off of? In whatever areas that you're interested in, where is there need for improvement? Yes.
I think I need a little help in understanding what you mean by human scale environment. I just don't quite understand that description.
Sure. So to answer the question, I have to give sort of a two-part answer. The first part is this is an evolution from the 2016 goal that really sort of talks about taking infrastructure and having the infrastructure be oriented to people instead of cars more. And I think that through these conversations, it's evolving a little bit further to both be about how do the physical assets of the city serve the people as opposed to just being physical assets. You can have a road, but what is the purpose of a road? A road is to help people get from point A to point B, not just to build a road. And I think what's evolving in these conversations is a lot of what I'm hearing this evening about creating stronger sense of community. Right. And I think that this, we're going to tweak these things as we go on. So I would say a goal of focusing on, we still need to find the right words, but creating an environment where people can thrive in their lives. And please help me to further define it, because as you can say, I'm using a lot of words for something that's going to need like 3.
But it seems to me there's a super strong connection with recreation and culture around that. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm Ravi Venkatraman. I'm on the Parks and Rec committee. I feel like I'm just gonna throw it out there, Joe. But Route 7 and Route 2 aren't very pleasurable walking experiences. Yeah, and so I think that as like South Burlington grows and tries to like put in more development into like the major corridors, like 2, Route 7, Dorset, around here, I think it's important to make sure that all those corridors are accessible to all ages, all abilities, and are pleasurable walking experiences. Right. So it doesn't feel like you have to step out into somewhere that may feel unsafe or may feel precarious just to get to that park or just to get to the store or anywhere. And so I think like adding street trees, making it cooler during the summer, and making sure that the sidewalks are wide enough and even enough are really important.
The other night in the climate and energy focus group, somebody said, I have a 10-year-old and my goal is to have my 10-year-old and every other family with a 10-year-old feel that they can walk and do an errand, go to the store and run an errand. And I think that's the same thing you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, then I'll get.
Well, I'm going to say that would be wonderful, but I can tell you down on my end of town, which is the Shelburne Road area, the only way you're going to achieve that is if you can get most of those cars off that road, because people are rampant with running red lights, stop signs. So they make it very unsafe, and it would be nice to be able, I won't even ride a bike on Shelburne Road. I will ride on the sidewalk because you've got 18-wheelers going by.
I live off Shelburne Road too, and I do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice.
I just want to expand on that in the Kennedy Drive, Heinsberg Road, Dorset Street Square. A lot of people I know use that. It's very nice to just go out and kind of mindlessly walk. I know the mileage. I walk my dog. I walk other dogs. It's a little bit of a safety issue though. I'm finding more and more because I walk there every week, and the whole corridor from the high school down to Trader Joe's. You never know what you're going to get. I see needles all the time. I've seen overdoses. I've called the police. I feel like they know me. I start to feel like that lady, but I'm like, I'm watching high school kids walk to school and I'm seeing people by those meters, by the Pet Advantage, shooting up. And I'm like, how could this be? How could this be? The high school's right there. The middle school's right there. The elementary school. I don't know if that falls under Park and Rec, but I do look at that path because it's a really cool path to walk and bike, that's where.
Well, maybe another way to ask this question is, how could recreation and culture kind of help enhance, the built environment to make it more human scale? So John.
Thank you. I think the painted power boxes throughout South Burlington were surprising and pleasing and thrilling, and everybody loved them because it gave us something that we didn't really see in those power boxes, and suddenly there was something cute and fun and pretty, and it was participatory. And I do think with our pedestrian bridge coming out, it's really gorgeous with, I think, the design. I hope everyone in our community supports this bridge. We'll see, but it's going to be, because of its colors, everyone's going to call it the South Burlington Bridge, which is fantastic, as they're driving on 89. And there's an opportunity for South Burlington to create a visual identity throughout our whole community that is vibrant and distinguishes us from Burlington, because these borders are so porous that I think there's a way for us to enliven all of our communities with art and in every single community. And it creates this visual identity. I think we can eventually, 10 years from now, be seen as this community of color.
That's a great comment, and it's I see someone's hands raising. Sorry, but I just want to say quickly. I mean, it's combining, what is a transportation facility, a bike ped facility, but it's also recreation, and it all sounds like there's art that's going to be included in it, and it's helping to create a sense of identity. And that's kind of what I'm, think. That's my question. Are there more opportunities like that? But I'm gonna get Amanda, then I'll come back to you.
Barb's online.
Oh, sorry, Barb. Did you want to speak up?
Sure, I can wait my turn, not a problem.
I was just
I don't
gonna
know.
say,
Yeah, I'll come back to the online right after.
I was just gonna quickly agree with where I was thinking when you guys were talking last, is that it does sound a lot like streetscaping, like just improving the streetscape. The more you have people that want to go on the street, then you get more eyes there, just more people engaged. And when I look at just the themes of all the committees that are here tonight, I mean, if you have a pet, whether you're gonna go see art, recreation, like those are all things where we're wanting people to be going out and walking or trying to get to these places. So it just seems like if we could be thinking about ways to, as we're accessing all of these different places, making sure that it's, I don't know, I want to say streetscaping because I can't think of what else to be, but places where it's friendly to go.
Go ahead, then I'm going to go get you guys online.
One of the things that we have done right is with the rec paths that are meandering, from the Farrell Park area and up through, where the disconnect is because of Route 7 Shelburne Road. And I know there's been talk about trying to connect down through to Red Rocks Park, but who knows what Burlington's going to do. But we have done it right with the paths that we have in place going up through. So that's a big plus for South Burlington.
Great, thanks. Can everybody online that wants to speak raise their hand, and I'll just make sure I get everybody. So Barb and Jean. John, sorry. Barb, go ahead. And
Okay, some of this is what I said in another meeting, but it seems appropriate tonight. We are talking about some amazing opportunities to expand parks and recreation. I'm not exactly sure where this fits in all of that, but we have to remember we have a tiny stretch staff. And so as we expand, can we please put a big note in there to give them more staff to get some of this done? And Holly did not pay me to say that. However, I want to go back when people were talking about walking on Shelburne Road and Dorset Street, and they mentioned bicycles and that sort of stuff. We've got to do something for the safety issue for walkers, because I love the bike path that somebody was talking about. That I assume Holly and her group put out the map that introduced me to these wonderful paths around Farrell Park. And they are lovely to walk, but I can't tell you the number of times that I have been nearly run over by a cyclist. And they don't seem to care that they're supposed to share the road or share the path with a pedestrian. And if we want more people to walk to the store and that 10-year-old to be able to go to the store walking, then I think we need to address the issue of safety for pedestrians as well as paths for cyclists. And that the things that we're talking about are so important in terms of recreation and quality of life and expanding those opportunities for everybody. So I hope we keep staffing and safety in those discussions as well.
Okay, thanks, Barb. Jean? Did we lose him? Oh,
Hello.
there he is.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, great. Hello, everybody. I was thinking of also to rebound on the identity of the porous border between Burlington and South Burlington, and how we can have our own increased community sensation of community is maybe have functional art. I don't know, it could be bus stop or bike path divider or something that has a clear South Burlington flavor to it. I thought about that when I saw the subway entrance in Paris. Everybody knows what they look like, this Art Deco thing. It's just very functional, but it's also a big marker, and that creates, I think, a strong sense of community, and I think encourages people to take the bus, for instance, if it's a bus stop, or use the bike if it's a bike path marker. So integrate that, I think, would be a great plus.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts on using recreation and culture to, oh, someone else? Yes, Muriel.
Oh, unmute.
Yeah, you're muted, Muriel. There you go.
Yes, as a member of the dog park committee or the common areas for dogs committee, I really would like to encourage us to become a more pet-friendly, dog-friendly city. And by that, I'm thinking we need to have more dog parks throughout the city. When you're speaking of equity and inclusion, I think we also need to have developers really consider dogs and dog needs in their design proposals they bring to the city and in their actual developments. I was very interested when Ilona Blanchard came before our Common Areas for Dogs committee at a meeting and talked about the brand new in-city center of like 496 new residences. And yet there had not been any thought really given to dogs, dog amenities, dog needs. Where are people going to be able to take pets out and walk them? For them even to go to the bathroom. So I would like to encourage the city to give more thought to that. And while I'm on the subject, I think it's going to be very important to consider sanitation. Just having more poop bag dispensers around the city, and for sure in public places and parks and things like that. So I just wanted to make mention of some of those things that I think we really need to do as a community. I think that will just help a lot.
Great, thank you. Loretta, did you want to speak? Yeah, please go ahead.
I just wanted to mention Garvey Park, which is behind my house. So I see pretty much a steady stream of people of all ages walking dogs. The daycare center brings a bunch of kids, up there, and they have a grand old time hooting and hollering, and they don't have a large space. Garvey Park is, I don't know how big it is. It's so small that it was created because the developer couldn't actually build a road plus houses on each side of the road. And so maybe it's like 0.3 of a mile, but it's an invaluable space for people to walk. And people do walk there. The other place where I see lots of people walking is, as you mentioned, from Farrell Park to Lindenwood and back. That's kind of a connecting corridor that people use a lot. And of course, there's all the trails beyond at Farrell Park there. But when you think about, neighborhood places for people to get, just into the woods, it doesn't have to be big.
Great, thank you.
That was
good examples.
I'm only gonna, just for point of clarity, so a couple people were like, we have- oh, sorry, Holly Reese, Recreation and Parks Director and forever resident. A lot of people don't know what Loretta's talking about, where Garvey property is. So it's not a signed park like many of our neighborhood parks. So I would just take this opportunity to bring up South Burlington has a lot of those little hidden gems and nuggets. And unless you live right next to one of those nuggets, you might not know. So I think an opportunity to really, take care of and take ownership over those parcels that we may have been gifted for one reason or another, or we purchased for one reason or another, and kind of try to, package that together for the community so they recognize it as an asset. So the recreation path is one thing. The informal in the woods trails network is a whole different piece that really is undefined and unexplored.
Okay, and so that's all public space, and there's
what Loretta's talking about is yes.
Did you want to add something?
I do. I would just add that City Center Park used to be the Dumont parcel, so it was a piece of land that we bought in 1975 and had similarly only been used by the neighbors.
Okay, thanks. In the back, then I'll come back.
I was just gonna add a, kind of piggyback off what Mario was saying about thinking about, if there's this large apartment building, where are those residents going to take their dog? And likewise, we want to be thinking about these little places like Garvey, and like, where are they going to take their kids to play in the swing? Where are they going to, there should be thinking like there might be X amount of children in each of these buildings. Where can you just take them out to kind of just get their outside time? Like every child should just have a chance to be outside, and it should be a safe and a green space and some place for them to, swing on a swing or play, And so thinking about, again, not having this mindset that I have to get into my car to get to the park where I want to take my child.
Right, yes. Go ahead.
Well, along that theme, that may be something for planning to consider, and maybe the rec department to push, is with these new developments, having them have to have an area for park. My neighborhood happens to have a park that's there. It's our park. we upkeep it, we pay for it and everything. But it's a great place for my neighborhood to come together, and if we want to celebrate our history, we can do that. We can have little events in our park. The kids can go down there and play in the park. People can walk their dogs in our park. So it's not part of the city network, but it is our community park.
How old is your neighborhood, do you think?
Huh?
How old's your neighborhood?
My neighborhood was founded in 1880 by spiritualists.
Right, and that's why I sort of knew that anyway, but like the thing is that that's what's urban planning back then.
Right.
Is that we have to think more like urban planners, like in that we don't want everybody getting into their car to have to go somewhere. And
Yeah, and I think that's coming back around.
yeah.
Aaron, did you want to say something? You turned on your camera. Muted. We can't hear you. Sorry. You want to try again? Okay. Okay.
Before you move on, Aaron, if you would like to send either in the chat, we're not following the chat this evening, but given that we can't hear you, if you want to put your note there or send me an email, would love to hear what your thoughts were, even if we can't hear you tonight, okay?
Yeah, now it looks like it's.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not hearing you.
Yeah, some kind of mic issue. Right.
But please do send us a note if with any thoughts you've got.
Yes.
I just wanted to also, when I was thinking about culture before I came here, I was thinking about history, and folks who know me know that I used to write articles about South Burlington's history, which is a challenge to find South Burlington's, any bits of South Burlington history. And I think the idea of, I think when you were talking about the neighborhood down by Hadley Road, right? Basically, that's an old neighborhood, that pretty old. That one, and obviously Lisa's neighborhood's been there for like 200 years almost. Those are they're the last remnants of community in a way of the early years of South Burlington. And right now, the only way you can, and to me, it's connected to culture. History is part of culture. And we've lost almost all of it because it didn't have a lot to begin with, because it was all farms. Mm-hmm. So how we can, I think it's great having these neighborhood, more we can support people having their neighborhood gatherings, the better. And so, I mean, I think we need to value the little bit of history we have left, because South Burlington has been a drive-through. It was basically the throwaway of Burlington, and it's the Williston Road and Shelburne Road are basically the drive-through, and those are our identity. Many people, that's the identity. So,
I guess you could say the older neighborhoods are human focused, and then we've lost that. But the plan is trying to kind of bring a focus to that back. Yes, Penny.
I don't know why I thought of this when Betty was speaking, but one of the positives, and this is more, may not be in the human scale, but one thing the library did revive recently was the baby brunch. And the baby brunch really does build community across, whoever's having the babies. And I think that that's just an aspect of positive change and openness.
So we have about 10 minutes left, I think. And there's a couple goals left. There's the opportunity-oriented goal. That was the third one. And that's about being supportive and engaged member of the larger regional statewide community. I think it'd be good to spend some time on that. The fourth one is climate resilience. And I'm not sure if that's as connected. It's important everywhere. But so let's move on to opportunity-oriented. Did you want to add to that, Mike?
Well, a short while ago, John was talking about the connector bridge and, creating identity through that new amenity. I know in other meetings, like trying to get people to think not just about South Burlington, but about our neighboring communities and collaboration. Now, sometimes that involves when you happen to actually be contiguous. Other times it may just be that, you share something in the area where you are, and you recognize that it would be good to try to see whether you can save some resources and improve communication. We were going to be stepping forward with community dispatch. That looks like it's on shaky ground right now, with some communities withdrawing from it. But there are ways to collaborate. We have borders with Shelburne, with Williston, with Burlington. And, so some of our endeavors, a little communication would be good. I have one more thing that I just want to get out, and that is the ARPA money. We were all solicited to submit ideas on how the money could be used. I've heard rumors of how that money may be used next year, which do not exactly fit the model that I'm hoping that we and other people can support, which is to try to spread that money around, because we all have our agendas, and a little bit of money can go a long ways to be contributory to the agendas of groups like us that are here in the room. I forget how much was being budgeted to build the dog park at Wheeler, but a reasonable allocation of the remaining funds could be adequate to create another dog park. And I live in that neighborhood, and you drive back and forth, and the thing that just strikes me all the time is how many people who didn't know one another before are getting to know one another now, because they are gathering at that dog park, and there's a lot of new relationships that are being developed. New relationships are transformational, and that's how they want the money used. Making an investment in art, in different environments and in neighborhoods. A little bit of money could go a long ways to do some things. So in Rec and Park, I mean, we need a lot of money in a lot of different places, but hey, sprinkle it here, sprinkle it there. But I know considerations being given to taking the lion's share of that money and to putting it in the direction of an agenda that gets a lot of attention already. Please think about these agendas, about these committees that are in the room, and what you can do with that money, because it can be very transformational. There's ways to use it, and it'll be transformational for everybody.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, Amanda.
Can I share what could be an opportunity, but it might not be necessarily regional? But when I'm thinking of some of these spaces, especially open spaces, it's already been noted that there's a lot of places in the city that people might go that are on private property. So like in my neighborhood, there's a tiny little patch that's on the wooded side of Rice High School. And there's a lot of those properties that are around. You're allowed to use them, but obviously they're maintained by private owners. And I don't know if there's some way to just, I guess, help to foster the sustainability of those places. Because for instance, when I see the Rice High School forest, I mean, just like the UVM forest over in Centennial Woods, like over time, you still have to do some kind of management. So I don't know if there's some way to have relationships where maybe it's something where the city can contribute by helping to do some planning to maintain, like how they should be maintaining that land overall. But I see some of these places that eventually, you know, there's no active maintenance of those forests. And what's going to happen eventually, you know, trees are going to go down and then you're going to lose that space. So there are a lot of these informal spaces that I think there could be just some way that we as a city could support that, you know, public-private benefits. And I don't know, putting that out there.
So is there a role for the region when it comes to recreation and culture? Yes.
I just want to get on the record. I know it's a big ask, the big one. We really need a pool. We need a swimming pool. And talk about like an opportunity. Every time I go to UVac, I mean, all of those people come from all around to go there to swim. But if we had a pool, our high school could have a team, kids could swim, babies could learn to swim there, older people could stay healthy. I mean, there's just so many opportunities.
I guess you could say that's regional, right? Because you probably depend on the other facilities that are around the region.
I mean, I'm like starting to hear rumblings with some things I'm involved with here locally about driving to St. Albans to their pool.
No.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
you can reduce, car travel. That helps with the climate. See, there's connected to all these schools.
It has a couple of
Indoor and outdoor.
Indoor and outdoor.
Are there, did folks online want to speak and raise your hand? Okay, so we'll start with John.
Thank you. I think a big opportunity is for us to figure out a way to help support artists who live in South Burlington. I mean, the city of Burlington gives grants to artists who live in Burlington to create new work. We don't have any kind of opportunities like that for artists who live in South Burlington. And I think it's really important for us to kind of nurture our own creativity and also then exhibit that or help our arts organizations who are theaters and dance companies and our galleries. That we want them to be growing and developing in South Burlington. And all of that is sort of supported across the street in Burlington and completely invisible here in South Burlington. So I think we really need, that's a great opportunity if we're talking about opportunities.
Thanks, John. Muriel?
Yes, I would just like to strongly suggest, and Robin gave me the opportunity, I couldn't agree more, we need a new recreation center. So I'm hoping that that gets underscored in the new plan forthcoming. I also would like to make a strong plea that the park maintenance now come under Parks and Recreation. I feel very strongly about this issue that I think Public Works is stretched in other ways, and I think it's high time that we now give more thought to the parks maintenance in general coming under Holly, coming from within the Parks and Recreation Department. I think we just need a maintenance staff there. And once again, I just want to encourage inclusivity.
Okay, thank you. And Barb?
Well, Muriel took most of the words out of my mouth. And thank you for that, both last time when she talked about dog parks and now about this, but a recreation facility could include a pool. It could include spaces for artists to develop some basic skills that might expand into something bigger. But I definitely, and I have to concur that we need people with expertise in recreation and park facility maintenance and who can be part of the recreation team to keep all of these facilities that we're envisioning functioning as such. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, so are there any, we have just a couple of minutes left. Are there any last thoughts about anything that people would like to share that you don't feel you had a chance to talk or to raise? Yes.
I think it's wonderful that we're all here committed. I don't know if we're reaching the real community. I was thinking that maybe we should be reaching some of the students, talking to them, have a questionnaire of some sort, of saying what they also envision, because we're all, committed to it, but we also want the community to be involved. And I think they are. A lot of times they are. The library is a beautiful place to actually get some of the kids there, get an idea of what they would think would make them feel part of the community. But I think that a lot of times when we're children, I didn't need a swing set. I mean, right? We went like back in the woods and we went sledding down and we just found places. We went biking on the roads. I mean, on the sidewalks, not on the roads. But
Play with sticks and rocks, yeah.
sticks and rock, and we did, you know, I mean, but you do, as a kid, I think you can, but I think part of our open spaces that's funded by the developments, correct? When they have a development, they have to provide some money for the open spaces.
There is what we call a recreation impact fee. So yes, there are a listed set of community projects each new home needs to pay towards that. And recently in the rules that were adopted last year, each new home or each new business needs to incorporate a certain amount of what we're calling a site amenity, a space on that site for people to use it. And that might be a place to eat lunch if you're a business, or it might be a little swing set, or it might, depending on the scale of it, it might be a park. But yes.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Trubish, and I own an Irish setter, and I've been to the dog park a great deal. I've heard it mentioned a couple times here today, and the word maintenance comes to mind. It distresses me greatly that the dog park is not being taken care of. I feel like the dog owners that go there all too frequently ignore their dogs for either because they want to socialize or they're just disinterested, or I don't know, but the amount of dog excrement along the fence line higher up in the dog park is egregious. And really, it just bothers me. It's like we've been handed this wonderful gift, a new dog park, and a significant number of residents are just, ignoring it. And it distresses me. So I thought I'd mention that. I don't mean to bring a down note here. I go there a lot. I've got a setter that just wants to go out every day and be really active. And I wish that we could sort of nip it in the bud. It's only been there since, November. And I'll tell you, when the thaw comes, you're going to have a big mess up there unless some people start picking up after their dog.
In my world, I have a bag of garbage somebody left on the front of Red Rocks in my car.
Okay, are there any other parting thoughts? And Paul will kind of wrap it up, but thanks for helping me keep.
Sure.
It's hard for me to look both directions. Barb, did you have a last thought?
I'm sorry to keep putting in, but the other night I had a bad connection, so I missed a whole meeting where I didn't get to talk. I want to second whoever it was that talked about, are we getting the right voices as part of this survey process? And I think that we need to go to the users, and we're all here, but people at the library, people at the senior center, people at the parks, people on the street, I don't know, but in the developments, in some of the housing projects, and make sure that we're really getting input from a cross section of our community.
And I think, to the extent that everybody can help with that, that would be great, just by spreading the word and sharing what you're learning. And I know it's not easy for everybody to come to these meetings, but letting people know that if they come, there's going to be people here listening. And I know you're asking for more than that, but like taking advantage of this while it's going on. Yes, we'll let you have the last word.
Okay. At one of the other meetings, I brought this up. Paul talked about the demographics of the city, and so many of us live in communities, neighborhoods that have homeowners associations. And I don't know, Paul, maybe you know how many developments there are. I mean, like condominium developments, and I don't know, we've got over half of our homes are multifamily homes. So I live in a neighborhood that has 167 homes, and Mike and I live there, and we have an association. If there was some outreach, I mean, I think it's a big bang for your buck if you did some outreach to the homeowners associations and were able to do outreach that way, because we have homeowners meetings, and we'll have 20 or people or so depending on the topic. And you could easily get, I think, access. And you're talking about over half of our population in the city.
Thanks. Okay, okay, Amanda, one last.
I just want to give a little plug because it was something positive, and I hope that it happens, is that when there was changeover in staff and thinking of all these public spaces, another way to get buy-in is to have people help maintaining them. And Ashley Parker, who was working for the city and her position's retooled, she had a lot of workshops where she was trying to get people to come in and do weed warriors and other things. You know, this gentleman over here just talked about the dog poop and the park. And I used to work in St. Albans at the St. Albans dog and do stormwater education. And there's the Lake Champlain Committee would do April Stools Day, where on April 1st, you would go out and pick the dog poop. It would be a little bit of a play on things, but it is awareness, and it's also, it brings awareness to the issue, and hopefully, you know, makes it happen. So they're just having, I hope the city continues to do those kind of events with however staffing changes.
Thanks. Do you want?
Just quickly, thank you everybody for attending. For those who are here in person, there's a little flyer out there that has the agenda for tonight, but on the back side, there's also a link to a quick survey about our comprehensive plan. Please feel free to share this with as many people as possible. We're trying to get it out, a way for people to only to spend 5 minutes and give their thoughts, because we know how hard it is for people to spend time. Preview, this was number 5 of our community conversations. Joe and I will be back on Thursday when we're talking one of the ones I'm most excited about, which is the Kennedy Drive and City Center neighborhoods. So really, you know, thinking about our multifamily housing as their neighborhoods, and thinking about, you know, what does that mean for the future? What are their needs? And then we're going to have a little bit of a break because it just happens to line up with committees and school breaks. The next ones will be at the very start of March. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon. There's
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
We have 4 year events. Yeah, we made clear. And some of that,